Welcome, everybody. We are here. Another episode of Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking, and I want to thank everybody for taking the time to come and sit and join me here for another great interview. As I keep telling you guys, I really enjoy interviewing people on a whole host of different topics, as you guys can tell probably by my channel. And definitely one of the topics that I find super interesting is when I start looking into serial killers and true crime and that kind of genre. And serial killers, for some reason, which I've always wondered, what kind of mind it is on a person who actually takes interest and starts digging into this, but that's a whole different topic. But I always wondered, what the mind is of somebody that goes in and wants to learn about serial killers. But for whatever reason, I find it super interesting, and I always have. And it's a topic that I look into. I watch a lot of documentaries on, and find it really interesting. And one of the cases that is for some reason has really caught my eye, and that I really am starting to look into because I find it really interesting, and in a lot of different areas, is the Zodiac murders. And I'm sure that anybody that's watching this has heard of this or caught wind of it, and I just think it is an extremely interesting topic. So I want to get somebody that actually, knows this topic way better than I do. Somebody that is diving into this topic, is covering it, looking at all angles of it. And that is what's very cool to me and interesting. So I'm not going to babble too much here. I want to get my guest on here, and let's go ahead and let me get him up here. And hello, Ross. This is Ross here from Planet X FilmWorks, right on YouTube. And I'm telling you, check out his channel once we're done this interview. He definitely dives into the Zodiac case extremely deep, and that's why I wanted to have him on as a guest, because let's go to somebody that knows what they're talking about, because I want to learn, and I'm sure you guys want to learn. So welcome, Ross. Thank you for taking time to come to my crypt and break down the Zodiac for me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. Shout out to Greg and everybody over at the Gray Stage. Those are the homies. I've been down with those guys for a while. I have a lot of content posted with them across various channels. You guys can check out my series, The Zodiac Files, on youtube.com/PlanetXFilm, and the channel is called Planet X FilmWorks. Episode 1 and 2 are out now. Episode 3 is coming very, very soon, and I think that should be a very interesting episode, and we can kind of get into what I cover and where the series is headed and all that. One thing I don't really interject much of in my episodes is my own personal opinion. So I guess this, would be a good place to do that, should you care to. And I think that's what makes the Zodiac case so interesting, as people like me and you kind of get sucked into. Let me just preface by saying I'm not a huge true crime guy. I was involved with the David Crowley case with Greg and Dan a while back, because I was actually an associate producer on the actual film, The Gray State. Okay, so yeah. I'm more, on the creative writing, film production side, which is where my company PXF comes from, and we do movie reviews and all that stuff on the channel. But yeah, I've been sucked into this Zodiac rabbit hole for years now. It was always something I just kept going back to. After seeing the film, much like you, I walked away from that film thinking, well, obviously it's Arthur Lee Allen, because that's what the film pitches to you, based on Robert Graysmith's book, Zodiac. And when you start looking into the ZodiacKiller.com forum and other places, you start to see wait a minute, there's 5 major suspects. There's 10 major suspects, and Arthur Lee Allen doesn't match any of the forensics. So 99% of us Zodiacologists don't even consider ALA a really solid suspect at this point, unless you combine him with Don Cheney, which is Drew Beeson's theory, which is Sighting In on the Zodiac by Drew Hurst Beeson. Okay, I work a lot with him. We just did a stream with Professor Thomas Henry Horan, Drew Beeson, myself, and Ned from Black Box Online Radio. He's got another really good true crime channel where he covers everything on there. But yeah, I guess it's kind of interesting for me to be involved in this, because I'm really not a big true crime guy the way the rest of these guys that I mentioned are. I was really into Jack the Ripper for a long time, trying to figure out who that was. And I think there is a lot of similarities between JTR and the Zodiac. Other than that, the Manson family, I've been sucked into the DB Cooper vortex lately, so I'm big in that's probably like my second one right now is DB Cooper. I also just finished the book The Ultimate Evil by Maury Terry, which is about the Sons of Sam, David Berkowitz cult.
Great book.
Similar to what they say about the Zodiac, where David Berkowitz goes down for these Sons of Sam killings, and it's actually a satanic cult, and he's only one shooter of many. What's my other one? Maybe the Wonderland murders out there, the John Holmes case out in LA. But other than that, really, I'm really like a 4 or 5 case guy. Drew Beeson has taught me a couple other cases. There's a couple other ancillary cases that are related to the Zodiac, such as Cheri Jo Bates, Donna Lath, Kathleen Johns. But I'm not really there's experts out there. Like if you really want answers, I would recommend, you don't come to me, you come to the experts. Go to Mike Morford. He did the Zodiac film review with us. He's zodiackiller.net. Mike Morford is a Zodiac killer expert. He's got a book on it. He does a podcast with Richard Grinnell, another Zodiac killer expert. I think he's zodiacciphers.com, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry if I screwed that up, Rich. They have a podcast together called Zodiac Speaking. If you want the whole picture, you go and listen to that Zodiac Speaking podcast with those guys, because they go through every little detail, even things that were, that you think are these far random facts that are actually maybe somehow connected. That's those guys. Michael Butterfield, ZodiacKillerFacts.com. He does the Zodiac A to Z podcast. That's another excellent one. So yeah, for the whole picture, you can go to those guys that have written books. Obviously, Tom Voigt, ZodiacKiller.com. That's where I learned the case personally. So I'm on the forum with my partner Gunnar, who does my series with me. But yeah, I just like to put that out there. If anything, I'm slowly becoming an expert on what we call the Zodiac pre-crimes, or the non-canonical crimes, which the Southern California cases that you and I will discuss.
And that's what I find. Yeah, that's what I find super interesting is that I watched the movie, and then like I said at the beginning, I watched a few documentaries, and they kind of like start where all the other ones start. Like they kind of don't go into the beginning. And then when I was watching some of your videos on your channel that you recommended, just to give me like a different angle from it, that they're like, you guys, like from what you guys have researched in a couple of the videos I was watching, you guys definitely think that Zodiac was doing crimes and doing murders before he was ever called Zodiac or whatever like that. So can you and I think that's a great place to start. Like I want you to walk me through this as somebody that doesn't know a ton about the case. Where did it start for you? Like where do you think his murdering started?
Right off the bat, you're going to drive the Zodiacologist sleuths insane with this, because this is what they all go back and forth about, arguing about. So the Zodiac persona comes into existence like 1968, 1969, like you were saying, with the canonical, what we call the canonical crimes in the Bay Area. And that's when he starts writing letters saying, this is the Zodiac speaking. That's when he finally claims his Zodiac moniker. Of course, you have in 1966, the Cheri Jo Bates had to die letters with this strange stylized Z that is written at the end of the thing. So a lot of people say that was him playing around with creating this Zodiac persona. The recent update on that is Riverside Police just announced that the Bates had to die letters are a hoax from a troubled teen that wrote those after the crime, and he had nothing to do with the murder of Cheri Jo Bates. And if you remember, that was covered in the movie when Paul Avery, who's played by Robert Downey Jr., goes down to Riverside with Tashi, and they look at the death poem and all that stuff. Well, Riverside PD recently comes out and says that was a hoaxer who wrote that. So now that stylized Z is no longer really in play, although Tom Voigt of ZodiacKiller.com seems to have some disagreement there. He doesn't really seem to, many people, we'll just say this, many people don't seem to even believe that that Riverside PD announcement, which is another layer altogether, right? Because now you have them saying this letter's hoaxed, and then a bunch of people don't believe it. And let's keep it real, Riverside PD has messed up a lot. So I'm not sitting here saying that we should take everything we should take anything we hear with this case with a grain of salt until we have, evidence and proof. So I guess if based on what my series is about, and you probably noticed on the episodes, we don't say whether we think it was the Zodiac or not in any one of those things. So this is a good place for me to kind of interject where I fall on that.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect.
Our episode now, let me just back up a little bit. What I had meant to do with the Zodiac pre-crimes was I had hoped to do it in chronological order, which would have been Ray Davis first, the Swindles Ray Davis first, Gavita Beach, Bobby Dominguez and Linda Edwards, 1963, and the Swindles, 1964, and Cheri Jo Bates would be 1966. Now, we weren't able to stick to that timeline because I have to bring my whole team. As far as I know, my series is the only series on YouTube that brings you to the site, shoots it in HD. In episode 2, we actually interviewed Christy Hawthorne. Shout out to her. She's the journalist who broke the Ray Davis cold case in Oceanside, California. She actually brought it to Oceanside PD because they weren't even looking for it. She found it in an old article, and their cold cases only went back to, I think, the 70s. So she reemerged that, and that we'll get into that when we talk about episode 2. But ultimately, the reason why, I'll just explain this for anybody wondering, because this guy, they're looking at me going, this guy said chronological order, and clearly that's not how his episodes go. This guy's an idiot. We shot it what was closest to us. So we shot episode 1 because Gunnar and myself and my videographer are in San Diego. So that first one was Ocean Beach, California, the Seaside Slayings. That is the old Sea Spray Hotel, which is now apartments, I believe. Oceanside was the next closest one to us. It's about 30 minutes north of where we're at. That was Ray Davis, Christy Hawthorne, which I just referenced. And my third episode is Cheri Josephine Bates, which is Riverside. That's about like an hour, 15 minutes from us or something. So ultimately, we just did what is closest to us. And then the next episode will be Santa Barbara. That's like, I think, 4 or 5 hours north of us. So if anybody wants it, let me just break down right now. If anybody wants to support the series, the best thing you could do is just go subscribe to my YouTube channel right now and drop some likes on our videos. Give us a couple views, because we are traveling farther and farther, and people are already hitting me up going, hey, when are you guys going up to the Bay to do the canonicals? And I'm like, the Bay is 8 hours north of here. So yeah, we definitely have it in the plan, but it's going to take some serious travel to get my whole crew up there and shoot those canonicals. I'd love to do it. I want to do it, but there's nobody else in California covering this stuff. You know what I mean? Now, let me back up one thing. My series was basically the first series to do the Swindles. There was nothing on the Swindles on YouTube before me. There was basically nothing on Ray Davis before me. Tom Voight and Christy Hawthorne had a couple interviews, so shout out to them. Like, that stuff was cool. There was a little bit of news clippings. Now people are starting to cover the Zodiac pre-crimes now, and people are starting to put videos out by it now. But my video started last year, so I mean, it's becoming a little trend now. I'm really looking forward to my Cheri Jo Bates episode, because there's a crap ton of misconstrued misinformation about Cheri Jo Bates out there on YouTube. And I'm talking about big channels with 1 million subscribers, 3 million subscribers, and they're not getting the facts right. And so I'm looking to really clear up the record on Cheri Jo Bates with my next episode. And we'll get into that after I explain these pre-crimes to you. But
perfect.
As far as my opinion of when the activity starts, now, keep in mind what I'm saying. I'm talking about a young Zodiac. I'm talking about a guy who hasn't yet, may or may not yet have developed the Zodiac moniker yet. He may not have even thought of it. That would be 1962 Ray Davis. And, some of those other guys I mentioned out there are fall here or there. I think Butterfield might lean towards Ray Davis being a Zodiac crime. I don't think Morph and Richard Grinnell are really on that. But we learned a lot from Christy Hawthorne. I'm not sure if you do the cards, and if you want to like link the episodes on here when it drops, but episode 2, the death of Ray Davis, we actually learned quite a bit from Christy, and it's not all on camera because there were planes flying around in the background and stuff. So usually, we shoot a whole bunch of stuff and then we edit it down to what the best shots are. So there's a little bit of extra stuff in there that I can fill you guys in on that we learned from Christy. And I posted her article as well. I think her blog is historiesmysteries.blog.com, something like that. It's easy to find anyway if you just Google her name. Ray Davis is very interesting because you've seen the film Zodiac. You probably remember the Paul Stein murder at Presidio Heights. That's the last Zodiac canonical crime. That's the one that Tashi comes in on, Inspector Tashi. Rest in peace to him. He was an excellent law enforcement expert. Zodiac sits in the back of this cab, blows Paul Stein's head off, three kids are watching from the window, and don't worry, this will relate to what I'm saying to Ray Davis. I'm just prefacing it for people who may know the canonical crimes and not know the pre-crimes. Then he wipes down the car. There's three witnesses that see him. Donald Felk and his partner Zelms stop a man with the kind of the glasses and that kind of crew cut haircut,
right.
Barrel chested dude. That's where you get the Zodiac composite sketch, the famous composite sketch. It's from the three witnesses of the kids who were having the party across from it was actually Washington and Cheri, I believe, was the intersection. And that's where you get Zodiac's face. And then, you know what I mean, that composite sketch gets blasted everywhere, and it catches wildfire, right? Because that's a big deal, right? If this dude was walking away from the crime scene after he shot some guy in the back of the head, was stopped by police, told them that they should go that way, and then he escapes in the Presidio Park.
And I found that crazy when I was watching the movie, because
that's the whole thing, right?
He was close to that, like that part, like you said, was crazy because they didn't realize who they were talking to, but it was also because the first description that went out was that it was a black person.
Correct. And so that's why he wasn't stopped.
Right. Yep, that's why. So they didn't stop him, and then they got corrected to it was a white person afterwards.
Yep.
But that's what's crazy is that from what I saw from the research I've done, the little bit of research and watching the movies, is that Zodiac was always watching. It seemed like that's what I take away from it. Like, he was always close by and watching in that. So that's just, I find that very interesting, like, for some reason, that he was keeping an eye on things kind of thing, and how he just kind of always seemed to get by the police, and it was really interesting, like, that they were that close to getting him, like, or questioning him or anything, and because of a wrong description, he walked right by.
Yep. That's the whole thing. That's the whole linchpin of the case. I have so many questions about that incident. We can, that's the last canonical, so we can maybe come to that later. But, I'm always wondering, what did his pants look like when the cruiser headlights were on him? Shouldn't he have? Because the kids said it looked like he had Paul Stein's head in his lap and he was cutting the piece of his shirt off. So you'd think, was he not covered in blood when they stopped him? Now the Presidio is it was at night. I don't know how many, if you've been to San Francisco Bay, I've been there many times. It does get very foggy at night. So was the fog enough to not see that this dude's pants are completely plastered in someone's blood from getting their head blown off? Now, what else do we have with the Paul Stein case? We have the bloody fingerprint. We have, and then he wiped down the car, of course. And then we have the phone calls of that, that's Zodiac's big deal, right? Writing a letter into the SF Chronicle and making phone calls to police and saying, oh yeah, that was me, and taunting them. Well, let's go back to Ray Davis, 1962, April 10th, because what we have here in Oceanside, is a very, 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 very similar story. And this is personally why I believe could be, in my opinion, highly likely a young Zodiac, because he has a call that's a threat before the attack. He says, I'm going to pull something here in Oceanside that you guys will never figure out. Then Ray Davis is picked up downtown Oceanside. He's dropped between the current mayor's house and the former mayor's house. So it seems to be a very calculated dumping spot. He's shot in the back of the head, right behind the ear. To me, that is almost a Zodiac call sign, a modus operandi, because you have that appear with Paul Stein, you have that appear with Ray Davis, and you have that appear with the Swindles as well. In additional to other canonical crimes, which we haven't yet mentioned, but he shoots them from far away, and he comes back and he tries to finish him off with a headshot. It's like the coup de grace, as my partner Gunnar called it in the Swindles video. So very similar thing. Then you get another phone call after. He says, hey, that was me that called last time. He says, next time I'm going to get me a bus driver. And after that, Oceanside and the nearby Camp Pendleton Marine Base, they put MPs on all the local buses for like 3 days. It's like, it was taken seriously, in other words, is my point by this statement, that it wasn't just like, hey, he's calling in threats and blah, blah, blah. Now, what is my opinion on Ray Davis? Well, my opinion on it is he thought by calling in and taunting police and then killing this, the taxi driver would have had no idea this was going to happen to him, right? He's just picking up a fare, and unexpected, he's killing a totally unexpected victim, leaves his wallet there, leaves his money there, so he doesn't actually take anything. He also moves the taxi. He drives the taxi himself further up and dumps it in another alleyway. So it's just like very peculiar things going on here, in addition to the 22 long ammo, which was used on the Swindles. Ray Davis It was used at Gavita Beach, 1963. I think it was June 3rd or 4th in Santa Barbara, Lompoc area. And it was also used in the first canonical crime of the Zodiac, the Bay Area crimes, Lake Herman Road. So you have that 22 long ammunition popping up a lot. People like to go back and forth on whether a rifle or a pistol is used, because one thing a lot of people don't know, I'm a gun collector, huge gun nerd.
Cool.
Full disclosure, 22 long ammunition can be shot from pistols as well.
Correct.
There's a lot of 22 long pistols. So a lot of people that don't know firearms, they say, oh, well, it's 22 long ammo, bro. It was a rifle. It's like a rifle in the back of a taxi cab. Like, come on, man. So, you know what I mean? There's just so many parallels. Now, going back to what I was saying about Christy, one thing that she told us that didn't make it in the episode was there's a nearby freight train where we're on that back alley between the mayor's houses so, I mean, if we're talking about the Zodiac, right, he scopes out his locations before he, finds his victims, in my opinion. So if he were to wait for that freight train to go by to take the 3 shots, you're not really going to hear anything.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? All you're gonna
right.
hear is the freight going by. So, I mean, that's one thing Christy is really good at. She's really thought about the details. She's the one who put together that the Ray Davis thing was very similar to the Paul Stein killing. That was the only thing that didn't make it into that video, was I wanted to do a breakdown side-by-side comparison of the similarities between Ray Davis and Paul Stein, because it's almost the same crime. Shooting a taxi driver in the back of the head, a very short fare, except for he obviously didn't take the taxi and move it at Paul Stein. Although we don't know that for a fact. He may have moved it 1 block. There's conflicting theories on that. But then obviously, the thing that we just talked about with him getting away in the Presidio. But here down in Oceanside, it's quite different. So Ray Davis, I personally believe that's like an 85% chance of being a young Zodiac. Now, again, like I started this interview with, I'm not an expert. I could be totally wrong. It's just my opinion. But looking at how similar the phone call threats are, and the only thing you really don't have are like the mailing in of letters. But again, that was, he always started that with, this is the Zodiac speaking in the Bay Area.
Exactly, right. I was going to say that.
If he hadn't created this is the, I'm the Zodiac, if he hadn't, now this is my whole thing about it is, I think he thought he would get much more publicity for Ray Davis, and he was going to try to terrorize the greater Los Angeles area, because Oceanside's kind of right between San Diego and Los Angeles. So I think in his mind, he thought, oh, when I kill this guy and I call the cops and threaten them, and, it's going to create mass hysteria, much the way it did in the Bay Area when he started offing people left and right up there. I mean, up there, it clearly worked, but you also have Paul Avery in the SF Chronicle really sensationalizing that stuff by putting all the correspondence front page. So he didn't really get that push that, I think it's Professor Thomas Henry Horan who calls Paul Avery the Zodiac's publicist, right? Because he's constantly writing these news articles about the Zodiac, and they're publishing his ciphers, and they're publishing his letters, and they're overhyping it because it's bringing in the readers, and people are very scared.
Sure,
one thing I forgot to mention is that bus driver threat that he makes after Ray Davis. Well, what does the Zodiac do after Paul Stein when he writes that letter? He said, I've often thought about shooting out the tires of a school bus, and picking off the kiddies as they come bouncing out. And then he drew the explosive diagram and said that he was going to plant an explosive in a cliff to blow up a school bus. Ultimately, nothing of it happened. They appeared to be empty threats, or at least no explosive.
But at the time, the police took that very serious. He said that they were like, it wasn't like they were kind of like shrugging him off. Like when he made that threat, from what I can tell, they took that very serious at the time. That, he was going to go after kids, like, because they didn't know back then. Like, they didn't know what they were dealing with.
Well, as you said about earlier when you started as the psychology of a serial killer, he's overhyping himself as much as possible. He's he's doing crazy stuff for one, so he's about it. But for two, then he's making even more insane claims than what he's doing. So as you said, where do you draw the line? How do you know what he's lying about stuff? He's embellishing stuff. He's, a lot of hyperbole. So it's very difficult. It's like, what is this guy capable of? We don't really know. I mean, he drew the bomb diagram, and it appeared to be sound reasoning that he has explosives understanding. So what's he capable of? We don't really know. And I'm actually going to interview Dr. Mark Hewitt next on my interview series, and his lead suspect is the Unabomber, which is interesting. You know, that could somehow play into here. I mean, explosives,
wow, really?
as
Okay.
we were saying. So that's, I mean, in my opinion, the Unabomber definitely has the intelligence. I feel like he was just a very busy guy. So I don't know if I would be able to add extra crimes on top of what he was already doing. But that's a totally different rabbit hole. So I'll tell you how seriously law enforcement was taking those school bus threats. If you go back and watch my first Zodiac Files interview was with my now co-host Brian Gunner, former retired Navy expert marksman, and he grew up in the Bay Area during the Zodiac era, and he actually tells a story that he was on his school bus when they posted law enforcement officers on every bus. They had some guys on the bus and they had other police following the buses.
Wow.
And that lasted for weeks or whatever. I don't exactly know, but it was a very serious thing.
Weeks. Yeah, I heard weeks. That's what I heard too.
The way he tells the story is he just showed up one day and it wasn't his usual bus driver, and it was like an officer. I think he maybe was out of uniform, and they were like, and he was just like, everybody sit down and do not talk. In other words, they had a protocol that if a tire went out, they were going to immediately pull the bus over, evacuate everybody, and they had officers following. So there was a whole, you know, much like Oceanside, what I was telling you about the MPs on the buses, there was a whole thing in ready to go, a whole plan, you know, which is interesting. But I don't know, did you have any thoughts on the Ray Davis episode or any other questions?
Well, yeah, I just found it like that, like as I was saying at the beginning of my intro, like you gotta remember, I'm coming from, and I think a lot of people that look into that have an interest in serial killers like me, you kind of watch the documentaries that are out there, and they don't dive really deep into it. Like they kind of cover all the highlights and what everybody knows. And that's what I really liked about the episodes that you sent me to watch was that you're looking at stuff before that and comparing that and trying to see if there's a connection, because that's what I really found interesting about that. And then how you broke down like where you guys thought maybe he shot from, and all of that. And I really do recommend people like anyone that's watching to definitely check it out, the episodes that we're talking about. And I will link those in the bottom of the description of this, because I do want you guys to check that out. I think that's amazing how you guys kind of look at that and go right to the scene. That's another thing I thought was really cool, was that you want to go to these scenes and break it down and do stuff right there. And that's what I took from it, is that it was really cool that you guys were just the possibility, you're looking into it, comparing things. And I think that's where it starts. I think that's amazing. That's what I took from it. I really enjoyed that you took the time to do that and not just cover all the points that everyone else starts at.
Yeah, again, as I said, we're in Southern California, so I've been deep diving this case for years now. Honestly, when I interviewed Drew almost just about a year ago now, there was just like certain little gaps, and in a year, I've read multiple more books about the Zodiac now, and just my own personal research of the pre-crimes. Like I'm much more thorough on the case now, and it's an extremely difficult case. Like I was telling you before, the only thing I would even compare is Jack the Ripper, and that is still much less complicated than the Zodiac, because you have so many more, kind of outside elements of the Zodiac case that are right on the edge of like, is this related? Isn't this related? And people constantly go back and forth on it. So as far as my pre-crime timeline, the next episode would actually be my episode 4, which is the Santa Barbara area. That is Domingos and Edwards. It's two high school senior skip day, 1963.
Right.
They're ambushed on the beach near Lompoc. And again, one thing I've pointed out in my series is, many people have theorized that the Zodiac is like a serviceman, either Navy or
I was going to ask you about that. He's definitely,
Yeah.
To me, I could see that. He sounds that very possible that he could be a military person. Like, just, so go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. And again, I'm not, I tried to push Gunner on that because he's a Navy, marksman expert.
Right,
so I really wanted him to weigh his opinion in when I interviewed him. And he was he kind of leaned away from it, which is cool. He knows he's a retired, Navy careerman. I've had a lot of, family in the military, Marines and Navy. So, I'm not like completely lacking in military history knowledge, but, it's one thing I always try to keep in mind, because obviously Johnny Ray Swindle of the Swindles, he was a Navy man. So a lot of people thought like, maybe did the guy who get him, was he somebody who served with that was jealous of him and his fiance? You know what I mean? It's like, there's a lot to it. So with the Domingos Edwards one, 63 in Santa Barbara, it's quite peculiar. A lot of people compare this to the Lake Berryessa attack. You know this from the epic scene in the Zodiac film. That's my favorite scene in the movie. I think Fincher did a genius job there. That, you know, much like my series, that Lake Berryessa scene is shot on what they call Zodiac Island, which is the exact spot where Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were attacked. They flew in trees to put the trees there to make it look like how it looked in 69. You know what I mean? So like that's
incredible.
That's why David Fincher is a genius. I mean, that's why, again, from a filmmaking aspect, the film is genius. From a Zodiac timeline aspect, they take some liberties because it's based on the Graysmith book. So there's some weird crap in there. Actually, I'll throw you an Easter egg. Brian Hartnell is the dude who survived the stabbing at Lake Berryessa. He actually makes a cameo in the Zodiac film when they're in the police station. He walks by in the background. So that's the actual Zodiac victim from Lake Berryessa.
Wow.
Brian
Now,
Hartnell.
thanks for doing that, Ross, because after this interview, I'm going to be going back and going and
looking for
this.
Brian.
I am.
It's a cool scene. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about the movie. When we did the review, I was telling the guys how, like, my favorite things about that movie, even the costumes and the wardrobe, how they dressed up the victims and stuff. They're supposed to be wearing like very accurate depictions of what the people were wearing when they were attacked. So there's certain little details that David Fincher is a genius on. I certain things that I don't know if any other director can even get them right the way he got them right. It's just the fact that they leaned into Arthur Lee Allen and they did all this other stuff that I don't necessarily agree with. And we could come to that later. But what I was saying was the Domingos Edwards, they call it the Gavita Beach murders. There's multiple beaches there near Lompoc. I mean, there's multiple military bases there as well. It's Vandenberg Air Force Base, and I think there's one or two others. And this is one thing that you're going to notice about these victims, even when we get to Cheri Jo Bates. They said it was a military style dress shoe footprint that was found near
right. I was going to ask you about that. Yeah,
where she was stabbed, and then of course at Lake Berryessa you have the famous Wing Walker boots, which were sold to Army, which were sold to Air Force and Navy men. They were non-static boots made to walk on, like Air Force like wings, like non-slip.
And you could only get those back then at like if you were in the military or at a military surplus store. Like they weren't like a common boot that you would get at like a
correct. And a lot of people try to tie that into Cheri Jo Bates, which drives me nuts, and I hate because it's not a Wing Walker boot print.
Exactly.
It's CJP.
Right.
It's a military style dress shoe print, actually a BFN Goodrich one pressed by prisoners at Leavenworth State Penitentiary. See, guys, I know the facts because I've been researching Cheri Jo Bates for like 5 months straight. So when I put this thing out, I'm expecting it to be the most detailed breakdown of that case ever. Episode 3, the Cheri Jo Bates mystery, coming soon on my channel. Subscribe.
Perfect. I'll be watching.
Gavita Beach. It's very, very odd. And here's the reason why let me put out the whole thesis of my project, the reason why I'm researching these pre-crimes, because I personally believe that if, for one, the way that those canonical crimes go in the Bay Area, I don't believe that that's a first-time killer. Also, we were talking about how Zodiac embellishes his kill count in the letters. He said, I killed 12, I killed 13, I killed 14. And the last one, he says 37, me, SFPD 0. So you'd have to go back and fill in the gaps because there's only, I think, 5 or 6 victims because Michael Majou lived and Brian Hartnell lived. So of the actual canonical crimes, it's nowhere near 37. Exactly. So you would have to start filling in the gaps of what's going on in Southern California. When I interviewed Dr. Howard Davis, we covered other ones like Richard Ratatich. He was a cop that was shot in his car around the same time. And then Zodiac said, I shot a man in his car. That could be one. Nikki Benedict down here in Poway, California, San Diego area. That could be one. And we covered that with Howard Davis. So, I mean, there's, you could really stretch it. I mean, I'm not going to do that in my series because I'm trying to focus on like what you said, places that have really good landscapes where we can get some really high res HD, good shots of and drone shots to really dig into the setting and show you guys. I really want to do Gavita Beach is the one that I wanted to do ever since I started because there's not much on it on YouTube. It's another really nice beach location, like that Ocean Beach location we shot. It's just a beautiful landscape. It's a very let me interject this before I go further. Lake Herman Road and, a lot of these other places, the canonical crimes, Lake Berryessa, as we just discussed, these are very common, like hunting, fishing locations, specifically fishing locations. So that's something that I personally feel you could work in here, because these kind of little water, lovers lane, dead end, water peninsula landscapes, right. That's what you always have coming up time and time again. I mean, if you're talking to a guy about a guy that does a lot of fishing, a lot of hunting, an outdoorsman, then he could easily have an intimate relationship with these locations. If he goes fishing at Lake Berryessa all the time, he's going to know the landscape. If Gavita Beach, it seems like it's kind of a fishing location as well. So,
and if he's a hunter, he's also going to have a lot of knowledge of the area, and he's also going to have a lot of knowledge of firearms and shooting and ammunition. Makes sense to me when you think of it.
So let's get into I mentioned the pistol and the rifle earlier. Let's get into the firearms and the shooting and the ammunition, like you just mentioned. So Gavita Beach, I haven't really deep dived this one because it's still one episode away from my research, but I know enough about it to speak about it. I believe there's a man and his son who are out there rabbit hunting, and they, as you just mentioned, hunting, right? A hunting location, right?
Right.
And so I believe they reported that like they were shot at, but they weren't hit. And this is right before Bobby Domingos and Linda Edwards are murdered. They're shot with, again, 22 long ammo, which I believe they did test that against the ammunition, the spent shells at the Swindles and Ocean Beach, and it didn't really come up with a match. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, because if this is a supposed mastermind serial killer, he can change his firearms and blah, 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 blah. So it doesn't lead you in any one direction, but it's just an interesting connection. So these guys report, being shot at. Bobby and Linda are down there. I think it's June 3rd. I hope it's either 4th, 3rd or 4th. And they're skipping senior ditch day. They're down there just, they got their blankets. They're just sunning, chilling on the beach, a dude and his girl just chilling. And they're ambushed by this lone gunman. Sounds very similar to all those other canonical crimes, right? Except this is 1963. This is still, several years before 68 and 60.
Right.
Even 3 years before Cheri Jo Bates, which was 66. They're down there, they're attacked. And basically what I was saying is people compare this to the Lake Berryessa attack, because you remember the Lake Berryessa, not only does he have the executioner hood, but he shows up with the pre-cut lengths of rope. That's something that people like, is that a, pre-cut lengths of rope? Is that a fisherman thing? Is that a hunting thing? Like, we don't really know, but he ties up Cecilia Shepard and Brian Hartnell with the pre-cut lengths of rope. He ties up, I think he has Cecilia tie up Brian first, then he tightens the knots. So in my opinion, this Gavita Beach attack, it does seem like a dry run for Lake Berryessa, right? Because again, you're right on, two lover's lane type situation, right. A guy and a girl right on the beach, bit of a dead end. And then there's this shack that a homeless dude was living in nearby. And we'll get into what happens there. So after they're shot, it appears that, this is kind of weird, right? Because after they're shot, he drags the bodies back into the tarp and lights it on fire. Well, if you've ever heard of the Tim Holt Wheel of Death, where it says by gun, by fire, by rope, by water, it's from a comic book.
Right. Yep.
You remember when Zodiac writes that letter and he writes the letters going down, he says by gun, by fire, by rope. So that's a lot of things people come back to in the Zodiac case is, what crime is by gun, what crime is by fire, what crime is by rope. Well, here we have by gun, we have by rope because he tied him up. We have by fire because he took the matches and he tried to light the tarp on fire, to light the shack on fire. Also left the Western Super X ammunition boxes, a bunch of spent cartridges and boxes in the shack. So where do we have that Western Super X ammunition? Well, we have that at Lake Herman Road. So again, that which is the first canonical crime in the Bay Area. So I mean, it's Winchester Super X ammunition or Western, whatever. It's all the same brand. So basically, what they come up with is law enforcement comes up with that this is sold at local like Santa Barbara like ammunition stores, and it's also sold nearby at Vandenberg Ammunition, Vandenberg, like the PX, like you were saying, okay. Which is like the depot with all the, military equipment. So, but what they were saying is the ones on the military base, excuse me, they get stamped with a specific thing that's from the base. So maybe if it was like someone, for instance, who worked there or whatever, they were able to grab it before it got that stamp with that sticker. That, who knows on that, but it's just a possibility.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's a possibility, right? And something to look at. I mean, you have to look at everything. You have to
look at everything. So Detective Bill Baker, the case gets passed to him down the line, and he was all in on this being Zodiac. I'm actually looking at reaching out to him. He's done, some interviews and stuff in the past, and he was all in on this case being the Zodiac. Now, mind you, keep in mind what we're saying, 1963. This is still way before 1969. It's 6 years before it. Now, you might not necessarily have the Zodiac persona, but you have a guy going around the California coast. And this one, mind you, is much closer to the Bay Area than the Swindles or Ray Davis or even Cheri Jo Bates, because Santa Barbara is kind of right between LA and the Bay Area. So this is, a lot of people say, like, even Drew, who's like really good he's amazing on his research. If there was one outside of the canonicals that would be Zodiac, it would be this one, just because the MO fits so much, ambushing these two lone, teenage or early 20 age kids, we'll call them kids, you know what I mean? Because he always went after these young people on the beach. And then, the final thing I'll add is, it appeared Robert Domingos's knuckle was punched in with a bruise. So almost that perhaps he was able to get the rope off, maybe attacked his assailant, maybe clocked him a couple times. As I think he was an athlete, maybe football or something. So he was not like some weak guy, you know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe got off a couple swings on this crazy lunatic and popped him in the mouth. We don't know, but that's how it looks. And then after they're both shot, he drags the bodies into the shack. So what a lot of people say is, well, Zodiac never touches the bodies. He never moves the bodies, da-da-da-da. But if this is a young pre-Zodiac, this is what I was leaning into earlier. Perhaps at one of these pre-crimes, maybe did Zodiac make a mistake? Did he leave, like you were just saying, did he leave some evidence? Did he leave a fingerprint? In the case of Ray Davis, Christy tells us in our video, they actually did lift fingerprints from that taxi cab, and they have them uploaded into the database. So is there something there? Is there something else here at Gavita Beach where he did touch those bodies and dragged them into the shack and tried to light the shack on fire? I don't know. Do you have anything else that you want to jump in on?
That's the thing that I like what you're saying here, because like I always believe, I don't believe in coincidences too, and then when you start looking back at this and seeing the similarities, there's a point where you're like, okay, this can't all be a coincidence. Like this is, and to me, I like what you're saying, that this could be a young Zodiac kind of, and to me, the way you're describing it is that he's trying to figure, like, I'm trying to think of a cool way to put it, but I mean, as simple as best, I guess, is that he, at this time, he's figuring out what he's perfecting his crime, I guess I could say, perfecting what he's doing, and I think in a weird way he's trying to figure out what he likes. And I mean, exactly. I'm just that's just my thoughts. I mean, I could be way off, but I think
you're right.
He's trying to figure I think he's trying to figure out what works for him, what he likes, and he's developing his persona. I just think that makes total sense.
I agree. I mean, I think you're 100% on that. I mean, so let's take a look, right? Did Robert Domingos get the rope off and sock him a couple times before he shot him again? And then look what happened at Lake Berryessa. He had Cecilia Shepard tied, because Brian Hartnell is 6'7". You know what I mean? You're not just going to walk up to that guy and try some fruity stuff on him, because you'll get slapped up. So he has Cecilia Shepard tie up Brian Hartnell and then tightens it. Did he learn from a mistake? Did something go wrong at Gavita Beach that you just said, his modus operandi, that he was able to adapt and fix it the second time at Lake Berryessa? Maybe at Lake Berryessa, he was like, no, because he used a knife. It was a much more intimate crime. So he thought, like, he was a little bit pissed off, maybe, that Gavita Beach didn't go how he wanted. He was still, now Gavita Beach, that probably was a rifle, because it was like the longest distance that we're talking about in all these crimes. So me personally, I think that one may have been a rifle. Most of the other ones were probably obviously pistols, because you have the casings that show you that. But let's get into a little bit of the weird stuff around Gavita Beach. So there was this homeless dude who lived in that shack that the bodies got burned in. Well, they tracked that guy down and they found him. I think he had an alibi. He had nothing to do with the crime. So it definitely wasn't the homeless dude who lived in the shack for the most part. You know what I mean? Like, that guy probably didn't even own a firearm for all we know. So there was really, even though that dude had built that shack and lived in it at times or whatever, he was transient. he really had nothing to do with the crime. You know what I mean? I don't think he was there. I think he was somewhere else altogether. He had an alibi. Then I think it's this one I'm going to mess up, but you guys can check me. It's easily Googleable. It's either slightly before or slightly after you have this crime with the killing of a guy named Vern. It's these two dudes, and they meet up with this kid named Sandy. And Sandy is kind of like, I think he's like 19. He's a weird looking dude. He has glasses. I mean, he looks a little bit like the composite sketch, but I feel, in my personal opinion, people really love to fudge that one. The Zodiac killer Sandy. It's definitely Sandy. Well, we don't know anything about Sandy. All we know is his name is Sandy. That's basically the only thing we know about Sandy. And also, in my opinion, that was 63. 6 years later, he's probably still too young, and he's like a skinny dude, but he's some weird homeless dude going around doing crimes, right? So he meets up with these other two guys, and they roll up on this old dude that lives in a trailer, and they're like, oh, we need gas for our car. Can you help us? And their plan was to rob him. Well, the dude starts helping them. He starts filling up the gas tank for them or whatever. And then they were like, let's try to rob him. Their plan was like, let's get him when he's unexpecting, and we'll try to rob him for his money. Well, Sandy pulls out a knife and starts stabbing the dude to death and kills him. So the other two dudes get picked up, and they say like, yeah, you know, we had a plan to rob him, but that Sandy guy went crazy and he just started freaking stabbing him. So this is a thing that people try to link these two crimes.
I was going to say, okay, they're going to try to link it because of the stat. Right. I guess.
Right. And it is nearby, right? It's Santa Barbara. So it's very close proximity, but I don't know if there's enough to say, you know, Sandy did Gavita Beach, therefore he's the Zodiac killer. I don't know about doing that, but this Sandy dude is never found. Nothing on him ever comes up ever again after this. And also that Vern killing is a knife killing. So can we stretch that to, okay, he also has a rifle somewhere, and then he goes and kills Bobby Domingos and Linda Edwards. It's a little bit weird.
Yeah, you're starting to stretch a lot when you start trying to do all of that.
Seems that we are. Yeah, it seems that we are. Now I'm not saying there's nothing there, but I'm saying we would need to find a little bit more. So that's the Gavita Beach murders, 1963. The next ones in my pre-canonical, aka my non-canonical, aka pre-Z crimes are what are we at? We did 62, 63, the Swindles, my episode 1. Johnny Ray Swindle and Joyce Swindle, Ocean Beach, right where I was telling you about the seaside slayings. You probably saw me and Gunner down there.
Yep, perfect.
Beautiful location, the bluffs. Very weird. I mean, this is really what set it all off for me, because I was just deep diving the Zodiac Killer Forum. Shout out to Tom Boyd and Gunner. There's some amazing researchers on there. My boy Jibber Jabber is out in the UK. There's a lot of guys out in the UK that are really good. And you get this weird thing. Something about it just didn't sit right with me. I'm probably at like at least 75% of the Swindles being the Zodiac. I mean, just because Johnny Ray is a Navy radio man. You know, the Jibber Jabber right now is trying to look into a radio connection. He thinks that the Zodiac may have been like a Navy man that worked in the you know, kind of radio sonar.
Okay, right.
You know, whatever you call that division, because there's a lot there with the whole Mount Diablo thing that Zodiac. Remember that Mount Diablo letter Zodiac sends. There's actually some sort of a radio radar dish. I'm sorry, guys, I'm an idiot. I don't know anything about radar, but there's a radar dish base on top of Mount Diablo. So is that another weird Zodiac ambivalent subliminal hint? I mean, we don't know, but there could be something there, right? And it's the fact that it's Valentine's Day. Zodiac is a holiday killer. You remember, you know, Blue Rock Springs. You remember July 4th. You remember Cheri Jo Bates, if she is one. That's Halloween, 1966. This is right before Valentine's Day, so it fits his whole little weekend holiday modus operandi. You know, you have them over there. It's pretty weird. You know, the police looked into it pretty thoroughly. I think they tested 30 firearms of local people. Nothing matched. This one may have been a rifle. There's some conjecture of whether this was a pistol or rifle. Someone did see a man running up the street. That's the part that that Gunner mentions in the video.
Yes.
And I don't know. We both kind of feel like if you had a rifle in your hands, like, you know, people would say there's some long object in their hands, you know, even if it was nighttime.
For sure.
if you stick it down your pant leg, then you're not really sprinting at full speed, are you?
Oh,
you know,
no, exactly. And this
doing
was
a weird shuffle. So,
right. And this murder was the one, and correct me if I'm ever wrong on this, Ross, because like I said, I'm learning. So be patient. This was the murder where he left chocolates behind. Am I correct?
Yes. So there's some conjecture as to was that chocolate the killer's calling card, or did Johnny?
Right. That's what I wanted to ask you.
I personally believe that Johnny Ray just there's a lot of local shops there at Ocean Beach. I think Johnny just got some chocolates for Joyce, and they used to do. Well, here's what I'll say about that is that walk was like a ritual for them. They used to do that walk very frequently. Did Johnny Ray Swindle tell somebody at work that he served with, not knowing that they were a lunatic? Oh, I like to take my wife out to the coast every night, and we do a walk because she loves the ocean. Did he mention that to someone that used it against him? We don't know, right? So it was right near Valentine's Day, and then they get ambushed there from the bluff. Same thing that we were talking about earlier. Several shots fired from far away. Then he walked up for those finishing shots.
That's crazy.
That's totally unnecessary. I mean, they maybe they would have got to the hospital. Maybe they would have died anyway from the initial shot. So we're talking about someone who's going for the kill, just like in the Zodiac canonical crimes. You know what I mean? Remember Mike Mageau, he was wheezing in the back seat of the car, and Zodiac heard him. He turned around and came back and fired more shots.
Exactly.
It's like, you don't really see that much with this, as you said, the psychology of a serial killer. Like, he's literally going for the kill. You know what I mean? Because he could just leave them there and let them bleed out, but he doesn't. And then Joyce Swindle's necklace was missing from the scene. Is that trophy taking, much like when he cut the piece of Paul Stein's shirt off and he took Paul Stein's wallet? He took a couple items from the scene there. So again, you have someone that does these, and again, it was the same shot. It was the behind the ear temple shot.
Yeah.
I think it was the left side on Johnny Swindle,
like an execution shot. Like that's
exactly.
Yeah, that's what he's. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So I mean, you have that. It's very weird. The Navy guys, the Navy frogmen, they swarmed the ocean there. You can't say it wasn't a thorough search. I mean, they really did everything they could. It was 1964. So, I mean, technology wasn't, incredible, but they do have the spent shell casings. They tested it versus the Gavita Beach shells. And I think, I can't remember if they wrote to Tashi on that one. I think it's in my video. But again, the big misconception of the Zodiac crime is, none of the police stations were working together, bro. They didn't talk to each other. That's why they didn't catch him. And if you dig into that, you see that, okay, they didn't have the best technology in the world, but they were mailing back and forth as much evidence as possible. So,
and if you look at the movie, if you haven't seen the movie, check it out. They kind of hint on that in the movie. They kind of, at one scene, they're kind of like, you can see them all arguing about, the tech, like they don't have fax machines. The one office doesn't have this, and it's the communication's kind of all mixed up. So they are they do say that the communication was kind of like not perfect, but they were communicating, in my opinion. I mean, it was just maybe slower than people would think.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, exactly what you just said. It wasn't that they weren't collaborating at all. It was more of just like, it was the mid to late 60s. Exactly. And it wasn't the best. Yeah, it wasn't the best technology in the world. So I mean, that's it's interesting. They call it the seaside slayings, or the honeymoon murders, the Ocean Beach murders. Is Johnny Ray Swindle and Joyce, they were from, I think, Alabama, and they were been married a week. It's that one started to depress me as I was finishing my research, because I was like, oh man, this is such a sad story. You know what I mean? Like,
I thought the same thing. I thought the same thing.
It's difficult, man. It's difficult. This kind of research is not for the faint of heart. I try to keep it as scientific as possible and dive into the facts as possible, but it's very difficult for that human story. I mean, when me and Gunnar were walking down there side by side, we literally retraced their steps. So we showed you the exact spot, and we kind of did that little walk that they did. There's even, I don't know if I've seen you done some Sasquatch, and I'm big into cryptids and the paranormal myself. I did mention the paranormal activity of Joyce's, the residual echo of Joyce's voice being heard crying out in the night. So there's a little bit of paranormal activity right there, and people say that's Joyce's ghost in the hotel, breaking glass noises and things of that nature. I mean, that might be a bridge too far for some of the Zodiac heads, because they want to just keep it pure true crime. But it's interesting to me.
It is interesting. It is. I agree.
Yeah.
I'm
into the paranormal. So
me too.
I mentioned it on there. I thought it'd be. I actually do want to cover some paranormal stuff on my channel at some point. But yeah, that was just my little way of throwing that hint in there because it was something I came up with during my research. Did you have anything else on any other questions on the Swindles or?
No, you covered it perfect. The couple that the questions I did have written down, you answered them. You're nailing everything before I even get to it, which is amazing.
Well, as you can see, once you spend hours and hours on your life with this stuff, you become one with it.
I did learn that when I dove really deep into the Crowley case. I mean, that's why I'm glad I'm coming to you to learn about Zodiac a lot more, because with the Crowley case, I went down so many different avenues and rabbit holes and all over the place. And it's like you said, when you start looking at it every day, you start to really, it takes over, and you kind of so I get it where you're coming from. You hit everything right. You're answering my questions before I even get to them. It's amazing.
Yeah, that was really sad too. We did the interview I have with David Crowley is on my music channel, and we spoke to him a couple of times. I emailed him a couple of times and stuff like that. That was extremely unfortunate. I feel pretty bad what happened to that family as well.
Me too. Me too.
And then, so that takes us to my next episode, which is soon to be released. You can subscribe to my channel, youtube.com/PlanetXFilm, the Cheri Jo Bates mystery. And this one is crazy, right? Because there's so much conjecture that goes back and forth of whether this was Zodiac, whether this wasn't Zodiac. He kind of takes credit for it in a backwards way in one of his, the Blue Meanies letter. And he says, I do give them credit for stumbling upon my Riverside activity, but there's a hell of a lot more down there. Well, is the hell of a lot more down there? Is that Gavita Beach? Is that the Swindles? Is that Ray Davis? You know what I mean? We don't know, right?
So or stuff we haven't even heard of yet. We don't know.
And that too. So he throws all these hints, and then and this one is really weird. They cover it a bit in the movie when Paul Avery gets the hint to go down to Riverside, and then he runs into Tashi on the plane when they're all flying down there together. And there's even some questions of where did that hint come from for Paul Avery? The guy that they say the Zodiac's publicist, was that Zodiac himself sending him the hint? Was that somebody else who knows something? Are they just trying to muddy the waters further? Because Cheri Jo Bates is killed October 30th, 1966 at Riverside City College. And you guys are going to love this footage. We have the best on-site shots of this, the HD high resolution, the drone shots. We have an incredible episode. I finally introduced suspects in this episode, which is something I haven't done in episode 1 and episode 2, as you noticed. And then I dig a lot more into the Zodiac, which is, my series is called The Zodiac Files, and I really haven't talked about the Zodiac much, right, in the first couple episodes.
Right. But I love the fact that you're one of the only people doing this, and that's what I love about your videos is that you're going back before where most people start it. You're going a little bit back before that just to look into it, and that's amazing. I think you're gonna
love this one.
I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
Cheri Josephine Bates, this is just such an interesting case. It's a very interesting unsolved murder aside from the Zodiac connection. Totally take Zodiac out of it. This Cheri Jo Bates story is a real crazy, weird one. So the last day of her life, she calls her friend. Her dad asks her to go to the beach. She says that she needs to do some schoolwork. Fine. She calls her friend. She lost her bibliography paper. So she gets pissed. She's like, oh, damn, I'm going to have to go redo it. That sucks. So she goes back to the library. The library was very small at the time. The whole RCC was under reconstruction at the time. She goes there. She's there before it opens. She's seen before it opens. She goes in. She gets her 3 books. She leaves the books on the driver, I think the driver's side passenger seat or the driver's seat. She drives a VW Bug. She was very proud of her VW Bug. Also, another interesting thing, her boyfriend, Dennis Highland, was a football player at SFSU in the Bay Area. And she was just visiting him, I think, the week before and had just gotten engaged. So again, do we have that Bay Area connection? Is that Bay Area connection a Zodiac connection? Again, we don't know, but it's interesting that
is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So yeah, I tried to throw as much of this in as I could, and this one gets very, very odd. Also, let's talk about the water theory connection. Remember when they talked about the water theory in the movie? Well, my episode 1 was Ocean Beach. My episode 2 was in the city of Oceanside. My episode 3 is in the city of Riverside, and that's the Santa Ana River is the water connection there. According to the Zodiac, he always kills near water. Lake Herman Road, Blue Rock Springs, Lake Berryessa, blah blah blah. So, she comes out. The middle distributor wire is pulled out of her car, and there's greasy fingerprints and handprints all over the car. So obviously the person, her car didn't start, and obviously the person said like, hey, let me help you. Well, she's lured into this nearby alleyway between 2 empty buildings that are being used to house like book depositories for the library. And there she's attacked with a knife and killed. And breaking down the timeline of those last few events are very odd and strange. A female student sees a man smoking a cigarette in the shadows nearby there, and they kind of nod to each other shortly before the event. Her purse isn't touched, so it was obviously not robbery. She wasn't really sexually molested or any of that stuff. So it was like, it seems to be like a pure kill, and then a very vicious one with many, it's a small knife that's used, like possibly a 1.5 to 3 inch blade. It's essentially a pocket knife, which is, that's just weird. That doesn't match the huge butcher knife Zodiac used at Lake Berryessa. He used a big Rambo knife there. So this is just a little thing, you know what I mean? And then she's left right there. Approximately 10:30 p.m. Some screams are heard by a neighbor, but we have to keep in mind that it was also daylight savings back then. So the whole timeline is thrown off into this weird thing that it was like, was it 10:30-ish? Wasn't it? And also nobody reports seeing her. One guy reports seeing her writing in her notebook in the library. But other than that, like none of her friends or the other students or people who know her reported seeing her really coming out. So that's kind of weird too, right?
That is.
So,
I was just thinking that's really weird.
So what I would interject there is the abduction theory. And I'm not saying I subscribe to the abduction theory. I'm just presenting it. Some people think, was it someone she knew? Did she go and leave there and go off with some person, some guy, and then he brought her back to that location later? And then it even gets, which it's possible. I personally don't believe it, but it's possible. What happens there? So this is the night before Halloween. Well, we're back to our holiday kills, right?
Holiday, right?
So,
exactly.
So one thought is, did he try to bring her out just after midnight to make the kill on Halloween? Some sort of ritual, Sam Hain, Halloween, maybe satanic thing or whatever, to try to actually make the kill itself on Halloween. That's possible. And then nothing really happens after that. Oh, actually, so the Riverside PD suspect, this guy, Bill Bennett, they tell this story that he was supposedly dating Cheri, although he denies it. He had a public argument with her and he slapped her shortly before his death, which he also denies. I'm just presenting what the stories are out there. I'm not saying which side I'm on. And then that guy gets weird because he supposedly went to this, I think it's called the Green Turtle restaurant, where he was like distraught, like after these events of her death, and he supposedly was like crying or whatever, and he was like sobbing, and he mentioned to someone like, I snuffed Cheri. And to back up a little bit, he was playing in a basketball game, and apparently she called out to him, and he ignored her. And he's like, that bitch is going to the library. This is all stuff that's been reported. Then you have his friends taking polygraph tests and a report that 2 people came to the scene of the murder after her death with flashlights, and 2 men were seen with flashlights. And we don't know if that was Bob Barnett and his friend. That Bob Barnett is the internet pseudonym for him.
Right. That's interesting.
But what was left at the scene? Well, a Timex watch was snapped off during the struggle, a men's Timex watch. The footprints of the military dress style footprints I mentioned, which was like a 8 to 10 size 8 to 10 or 8 to 10 inch print, or size 8 to 10 shoe, the cigarette butts, and she had degraded skin under her fingernails and a little bit of brown hair on her hand. So there is evidence left there. And then, as far as the watch being ripped off, this guy supposedly sees his friend at a restaurant, and asks him, hey, I lost something. Can we go back there and search together? Of course, maybe was there something else there that got left, that got taken, that we don't know about? You know,
right.
That's possible. So 6:30 a.m. the next morning, this dude, Cleophas Martin, the groundskeeper, finds the body. He reports it in, and the first officer on site is a guy named, I think, Don Walters. Now I've got my this right here is the magic book that gets the Zodiac files done, guys. If you have to see
the
my
black
secret
book,
my secret relic, you know what I mean? Don Walters calls in HQ to report. And what I'm about to tell you guys now is the rest of the weirdest story that I've ever encountered in my life. So they do some smart, cool stuff. The police have a reenactment. They have everybody who was there that night return and park where they parked and sit where they sat and wear what they wear. So what they're looking for, because of the struggle, they're looking for somebody with maybe fingernail marks on their face.
Right,
or their arms.
yeah, exactly, right.
Someone who looks like they may have been in a struggle that can be related to the situation. You know what I'm saying? 100 overall, 133 man hours were spent. The RPD took it real seriously at this point. They got the chief told his D-techs, drop everything on your queue and do Cheri Jo Bates Riverside. Like, we're going to figure this thing out. So they had every single man on it. You know, we can't, you know, that's one thing. I'm not huge on RPD myself because some mistakes were made, but from what I'm about to tell you, they did put the effort in. I'm not going to sit there and tell you they did nothing. You know what I mean? So after 75 interrogations by November 1st, within 24 hours, and over 125 interrogations by November 3rd, nothing had came up. Now, what they discovered was the two people who didn't return to the reenactment were a heavy-set man with a beard and a blonde girl who he was talking to, who is not Cheri. Cheri's a blonde girl as well.
Okay.
Neither of them returned to the reenactment. Is that something? We don't know. The car, which was parked behind Cheri's VW Beetle, was reported to be a Tucker torpedo, but there are only like 50 of those made, so they think it was actually...
that's a rare car. Yeah, that's rare.
They don't think it was that. They think it was actually, even though people thought it was that, like, because, you know, it might have just been someone who knew what a torpedo was, but really didn't know cars. They think it was a Studebaker. They think it was a tan 1947 to 52, 53 model Studebaker.
Okay.
You know, older car. After those screams that were heard at 10:30, there was the sound of like a car starting up and kind of peeling off. So obviously it was that guy bouncing from the scene. So they're looking for a heavy-set man and a tan Studebaker. Those were the things that never came up ever again. There's also some weird stories about Cheri driving around on her way to the library, one of her friends seeing and waving to her, and she didn't notice her friend, and possibly a tan car following her. So, I mean, if you really dive into the weeds on this, you could really come up with some crazy crap. So was she being followed on the way there? You know, we don't know, right? So it's just something.
That is crazy. Just before you continue, do you I just want your opinion. Do you think that Zodiac stalked his victims before, or do you think it was just somebody he picked out random? I'm just curious what you think.
Me personally, I think Zodiac stalked locations, like the hunting fishing theory that we were saying. I think Zodiac is check out Drew Beeson's sighting in on the Zodiac killer. He has a really good suspect who has a extensive hunting fishing background. I think Zodiac is an outdoorsman, my personal theory. So I think he knows the locations, and look at, you know, like we said before, those are almost all fishing locations.
Exactly.
Lake Herman Road, Lake Berryessa, you know, and again, Arthur Lee Allen, you know, he said he told the cops himself that he was up in Lake Berryessa. You saw that scene in the movie.
Yes.
So I guess, you know, he said he was a skin diver. So, and Arthur Lee Allen had, you know, he had some experience skinning animals and stuff like that. I think in every other way, other than that aspect, he's probably a terrible suspect. But yeah, I think Zodiac knew the location. So if he was out there all the time hunting and fishing, you know, it'd be real easy for him to hop in the car and go for a drive and find these Lover Lanes kids, you know, just parked out there by themselves. He's out there all the time. So he knows that if I'm in and out real quick, I can get out before anybody.
Exactly.
comes
And that's
here.
I just asked that because from what I've watched a few other videos and people talking, and a lot of people are trying, like, they're kind of going back and forth. Like, did he was he stalking these people? Was it just somebody random that he grabbed and stuff like that? So I definitely wanted to get your opinion, what you think. And I'm kind of like,
I've heard some cool theories on it. There's some great theories on the Zodiac Killer message board. I can't credit you because I forgot your name, but one guy said there's always a car connection in Zodiac crimes.
Exactly. Right.
He's always in his car and they're always in their car. So one person proposed, could he be some sort of like used car salesman that has some relation to the cars? I mean, I don't know. I'm just presenting it, but that's one of the best theories I've ever heard because it's very, if it's not a hunting, fishing location thing, you know, maybe it's a car thing, you know what I mean? But and again, like I said, you know, I'm not one of those people that's going to nail down any little fact and say it's definitely this, because until we get evidence, we don't know.
Right. And you definitely don't want to start doing that, right? Like you want to try to keep to the facts the best you can.
Exactly.
And, yeah. So not to cloud it, because I mean, this case alone for somebody like me, who's just really starting to dive deep into it, you know, we don't need more clouding. It's already crazy from the start. Like it's already crazy. You don't need to add anything.
You don't need to add any dressing on this. And we
exactly
really haven't even gotten to some of the really, like some of my favorite parts about it are just these little random crazy things that happen, like the Kathleen Johns thing. That's the scene in the movie with the pregnant lady when he picks her up in the car and she runs off in the field.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. Like that's crazy. And like, yeah, you got to talk about some of these. It's crazy, people, if you haven't seen this.
A lot of people like to say, like, you know, they think Kathleen Johns was lying. I personally don't think she was lying. I think something. I think that event happened to her. Could I definitely say if that was the Zodiac or not? I wouldn't really be able to nail that down for you. But I believe that. I don't think she's lying. I believe that happened to her.
I agree. And that's the thing. Like I always think too, when crimes like this are going on, as everyone knows, there's a lot of copycats going on too, right? So you don't know if it was Zodiac. You don't know if it was somebody just trying to scare her. Somebody trying to play along as Zodiac. I mean, you don't know.
If I'm not mistaken, she said it was the suspect, Heinz suspect, Lawrence Kane. He's the short,
yes.
Yeah. So, and then he's also related to the Donna Lass thing, which is the In the Pines card, the nurse that went missing from the the Nevada, California border hotel casino. I think it's a Hard Rock now, but back then I think it was I forget what it's called, Tahoe Casino or something like that. So, I mean, and then they said like Larry Kane worked at that same one in a few years later in 76. So, I mean, I'm not a big copycat guy. I think if there was any copycat thing going on, maybe Lawrence Kane did Kathleen Johns and Donna Lass, if Donna Lass even is one. But, you know, maybe the Zodiac did both of those too. You know, who knows, right?
You're right.
Let's get back to Cheri Jo Bates. So November 20th, the press enterprise receives the confession letter. It's a why am I spacing on that word? A typewriter letter. It's a typewriter letter where he gives what were supposedly intimate details of the crime about him, you know, grabbing her and stabbing her and all this stuff, and he brags and boasts, you know, about all this shit. And you know, that's weird in itself. I mean, people dive into the type of paper that was used because it was a carbon teletype paper, and it was essentially put in the middle of the stack with the tops and bottoms ripped off. So that was essentially someone, you know, because they usually have some sort of identifiable things on the header and the bottom, the footer. So, you know, they say, oh, that's someone that knows exactly what they're doing. There's entire threads on the Zodiac forum about what type of paper was used. I tried to not get bogged down in that rabbit hole because I'm trying to present something as clear and concise as possible. One thing I'm trying to do with my videos is I'm trying to make it so if you, like you were saying before, if you don't know anything about the Zodiac or the pre-crimes, you can watch my videos and get every single fact. Or if you know a lot about it, you can watch my videos and still, you know, learn a lot more because certain details. So I'm trying to do my stuff for both audiences, whereas a lot of the Zodiac stuff, like you said, it's like, oh, you don't know the case? Sorry, I can't talk to you, bro. You're not going to get it anyway. You know what I mean? I'm trying to bring people in, but if you already know it, you could still learn something from my stuff.
And that's what I love about it, that you start and for somebody that doesn't know a lot about it and they've just heard, you know, a couple documentaries or they've looked into it a little bit, you kind of break it right down and kind of walk people through it. And I think that's amazing. That's you know, you're one of the very few people doing that.
Yeah, and some of the documentaries are good too. Don't get me wrong. Like his name was Arthur Lee Allen. You know that after watching the movie, that helped me learn the case. And I think the other one is This is the Zodiac Speaking documentary. I'm not saying like those are, you know, because they have interviews with Falk, with Zelms. So these are the, like Avery and, Graysmith is there all the time. And, Graysmith's opinion is kind of not really considered serious at this point. But I mean, he did write the book that created the movie that presented the case to the world. So what I would say about Graysmith is this. His timeline is amazing because he was there. He was also the cartoonist that drew the Lake Berryessa executioner hood costume that you were asking me about.
Yes.
Graysmith is actually the guy who drew that. And it's an amazing drawing. I love that drawing. It's very, it looks to be very accurate of how Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard described it. It's just some of the stuff that he lumps in with Arthur Leigh Allen is he starts to, he snowball effects and he starts to make kind of, Arthur Leigh Allen fits everything, which he really doesn't, to be honest.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and and everybody knows that drawing. Like, as soon as, even if you don't know much about true crime, you see that drawing and you're like, that's Zodiac. Like, you know
that's the Zodiac.
Sure.
That's and it's crazy. He wore an executioner's costume in broad daylight. It's friggin' nuts. You know what I mean?
Like, for that time, before we go on with the drawing of the executioner and all of that, is that the first time that it's ever mentioned that that's the outfit that he's wearing? Is from that what happened in that crime? Like, when she gave the description of what she saw, is that the first time that anyone ever saw him in that outfit that we know of?
Yep, that we know of. Because she actually saw him without the mask on. Because she was remember in the movie, she's trying to tell Brian, like, hey, there's a man back there behind the tree.
Watching.
And Brian's like, he's just taking a leak, chill, you know what I mean? And she's like, oh crap, he's coming out with a freaking mask on and now he has a gun. You know what I mean? So it gets weird fast. So yeah, that was now if Brian didn't survive that attack, maybe we never have that Graysmith picture because we would have never known he wore, if there were no survivors, we would have never knew he worn that costume. You know what I mean? So if he was intending on them to die, so that makes it quite interesting. But let's get back to Cheri Jo Bates. 6 months later, the Bates had to die letters are written to Riverside PD, the Press Enterprise, which is the local newspaper, and one that said she had to die is written to his her father, Joseph Bates. This is the one that I was talking about earlier, that Riverside PD recently came out and said it was some troubled youth from San Bernardino, and it has nothing to do with the case. A lot of people still think Zodiac wrote all of this stuff, and they don't really know where Riverside got that story from. The problem with RPD is they've gone back and forth on it. They've said that in 1970, they announced that she was an official Zodiac victim. Then this guy, Bud Kelly, takes over, and he was only pushing that local suspect, who's the guy that supposedly dated her that I was telling you about earlier.
Right.
And so that's what is weird about this seesaw, is at points RPD said Cheri Jo Bates is the Zodiac for sure. Then they started to go back. No, it's a local suspect. Now, what happens with that Bob Barnett guy in 1990? They intercept him at the airport, and they test him for hair, saliva, blood, blah, 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 and nothing matches.
Right.
He also supposedly had a polygraph that he was thrown out of because they thought he was lying, and his friend failed his polygraph. Then he had a couple other friends who ratted on him that supposedly passed polygraphs. It's all in my video coming up. It's rather difficult to describe just going through it one by one like this. But you can just see that the whole thing is this tug of war, push and pull. Is it the Zodiac? Is it this local guy? And then this Bud Kelly guy, he becomes the chief. He's a big Christian guy. He wrote poetry. He used to take Sherry's diary home with him, so people thought that was a little weird. And he said that she talked about this local suspect in the diary all the time. Well, he's this big Christian guy, and then he gets popped for crimes against children. He was a former Marine. And I'm talking about in his I think 70s. He goes down in flames and gets arrested for crimes against children. So now is he a suspect? A lot of people think that his DNA material should be checked against the crime scene. So he ends up being a weirdo to make a weird.
They never check his DNA at all.
I never got. Given that he's a Marine and a cop, but he was in charge of the investigation, I would say that I doubt it was something that they would just do right away, because they're not going to say, oh yeah, it was our guy. It was the guy that was in charge of the investigation. He did it. I feel like they would be very hesitant to make that announcement, but I never got a specific answer on that.
Perfect.
So you remember in 1970, Paul Avery receives that letter to go down and check the Riverside thing. The other thing at Riverside is the desk poem. December 19th, 1966, library staff discovers this desk poem. It's this very morbid poem written about, which sounds like it's about a stabbing crime. It's etched into the bottom of the desk. People commonly call it the desktop poem, but it was actually on the underside of the desk. So that's another misconception there. It's just this very morbid, vague poem, weird poetry. It's signed with a RH at the end, and no one really knows what that RH means. And no one really knows who wrote it. And no one even knows if it's connected to the Cheri Jo Bates crime, but it's very clear about cut. It starts with sick of living, unwilling to die. And then it talks about like cutting. And then it says her dress was like she's covered in blood. Oh, well, her dress was red anyway. And then it says like she got away this time. We'll see what happens next time. Well, that sounds very similar to a crime by a kid named Roland Lynn Taft, which happened in 1965 on the RCC campus, where he was like, I think a 18 or 19-year-old kid or something, and he attacked a girl with a knife and she got away. So some people think that's the inspiration for the desk poem, or it could be the Cheri Jo Bates crime. The problem is with the desk poem is they don't know if it was written before CJB or after CJB.
Right, like it's all speculation, right? You
don't no way to know.
Yeah, no way to know.
But has this gotten weird for you yet with all the confession letters and the Bates had to die letter and then the desk poem? I mean, it's just like, where else do you encounter this stuff?
Exactly. It's definitely weird.
So I don't know how long you want to keep me, but we'll keep it. I'll end it with
Yeah, you did. I'm fascinated, Ross, right now. Like, I'm definitely gonna have you back on again to keep talking about this, because I mean this is fascinating. And now,
well, have me back, and we'll do the canonical crimes. If you want, I could bring, like, if you want a real expert on the case, I could bring like Drew Beeson. Like, he's really good with the names and the dates and the the events and stuff.
That's what I was gonna ask you. I was definitely gonna ask you if we can maybe hook up some other guest that can give me some different aspects of it, and because I love talking to different people. So, but when you're doing amazing. I mean, this is fascinating, and I'm definitely gonna be digging into this tonight. I'm gonna be going deeper into this case. I really want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Check out the Zodiac Ciphers.com. I believe that's Richard Grinnell's website. He has an amazing article on Cheri Jo Bates with all the news articles and all the pictures of the evidence and amazing breakdowns of the autopsy and stuff like that. So the actual cause of death was a hemorrhage to the right carotid artery in the neck.
Okay.
And I'll leave you guys with my suspect, Ross Sullivan. And no, it's not because we have the same name. Quite frankly, that is an embarrassing fact for me. But he's this big 6'3", 300-pound dude. He has glasses. He has a widow peak. Quite frankly, his picture looks a lot like the Zodiac composite sketch, which is why he often comes up as a Zodiac suspect, although there's absolutely nothing placing him in the Bay Area for the Zodiac canonical crimes. I'll give you guys, this is all in my episode coming soon. I'll give you guys a little bit of my notes. His brother supposedly married Bates' best friend. So the question is, do you know each other? He also wrote poetry, which is like weird. If you see all these suspects I'm naming, they were all poetry writers, which you have that weird desk poem. He worked in the library. So a lot of people one thing I didn't mention was there were paint specks found on the watch. And if you remember when I mentioned Johnny Ray Swindle was doing painting for his landlady, and he got his Timex. So a lot of people have hypothesized that maybe Swindle's watch was stolen there, and then that was the watch at the Cheri Jo Bates, although there's no definite anything to say that was his watch.
Right,
but I mean,
and I just have to ask you, because I'm not sure if it was the movie or I saw it in a documentary, but did they think is it true that they think he got the Zodiac symbol from a watch?
Yeah, so Arthur Lee Allen has that Seawolf watch. That's a really good question for Drew Beeson, because he'll really break that down for you. That story,
cool. Very cool.
That story comes from Don Cheney, who said that and he changes the story around because Don Cheney's a pathological liar, that Arthur showed him this Zodiac Seawolf watch, and he asked it like, hey, do you think this is a good watch, man? And then he also said that Arthur Lee Allen told him that he wanted to write fiction about how he taped a flashlight to a gun and went around shooting kids at lover lanes and stuff. I mean, it all just fits together a little bit too nicely, because do you really...
Right.
Do you really picture the Zodiac going and telling his best friend his entire plan so that guy can someday use it against him when he tells it to the police, which is what Don Cheney did? It just seems too convenient, like what you said about
coincidences and too perfect. It's just too perfect.
Yes. So I don't really like that one, but yes, the watch does exist with the Zodiac crosshair logo on it. I mean, that's not like, I mean, that's a fact. I mean, so
perfect. All right. I just wanted to ask you.
Yeah, it's a great question for Drew. So what I was saying about the paint flex is Ross Sullivan worked in the library as an aide, and they were repainting the book binding. So a lot of people were saying like it's possible that like if he was doing that book binding painting, that the paint flex on the watch could have been him. Although this dude is 6'3", 300 pounds, so those footprints probably don't match him. The watch strap was only a 7-inch watch strap, so you're talking about like a slender, skinnier guy, and that also doesn't fit the Zodiac body type. And what else did I have on Sullivan? He was schizophrenic. He used to brag about being at Patton State Hospital, and he also was known for writing a really weird, morbid poem that creeped out a lot of the RCC school staff. So it's been this journalist David Peterson, who was looking deep into this stuff. He thought Ross Sullivan wrote the death poem. Now I've seen people on YouTube report that Ross Sullivan wrote the death poem. No, David Peterson thought that Ross Sullivan wrote the death poem. So yeah, it's highly probable, but we still have no concrete evidence on who the death poem.
There's no evidence to concrete evidence saying he did.
We don't know. It's possible he's a good candidate for it. You know, I'm not ruling it out myself, but I'm just saying I can't go to YouTube and tell you guys it was definitely blah, 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 because I'll have a million nerds in my comments killing me on it. So he later on dies of the Pickwickian syndrome, which is extreme obesity. You just keep gaining weight until your heart gives out of cardiac arrest. And that is also hyperventilation syndrome, mass obesity. He was also schizophrenic. So you're talking about an unstable dude here. He was gone from Riverside City College for 6 days after Cheri Jo Bates died, and he came back with completely different clothes. He used to wear the same clothes every day, and he used to smell really bad. So I mean, he's just like a colorful character. He later relocated to Santa Cruz, which is kind of near the Bay Area, but it's not perfectly where those canonical crimes happened. And he died in 1977 at 36. Police said that he had an alibi, so he was checked out. He supposedly didn't have any scratches on him. So I mean, it's very difficult to say. One thing people like to say, if it was that Bob Barnett guy, that maybe he had an accomplice with him. So the reason why like the hair and skin didn't match him was because she scratched the other guy while he was holding her, so we don't know. It's crazy, man. To me, this is probably, and I'm not even talking about the Zodiac now. I'm just talking about the unsolved murder of Cheri Jo Bates. It's one of the craziest things. And let me leave you with one final thing, because the Zodiac likes to do astrological signs. October 30th, 1966, the moon was a full moon. So there you have another weird Zodiac celestial thing. It was a full moon in Taurus, and the astral alignment was a full moon in Taurus, and it was Halloween. So there you have
another holiday thing, like
the water theory connection, the holiday connection, and the full moon in Taurus Zodiac connection. And a lot of, I think, wasn't Arthur Lee Allen a Taurus, right? So a lot of people have said like Zodiac's definitely a Taurus, and everything he's doing is blah 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 Taurus. I don't know, it's not really out there like that. But I kind of picked. Yeah, I kind of picked Ross Sullivan for a suspect, but again, his arms are probably too big for the wrist strap, and his feet are probably too big for those shoes. But it's interesting that he was gone from the college for a while, and then he came back with his clothes fully changed. It makes a lot of people.
And I mean, in my opinion, he's just as good a candidate to be Zodiac as anyone else at this point.
Michael Morford, who's an epic Zodiac expert, he was on Ross Sullivan for a long time. His current suspect is a guy named William Andrew McDuff, who he recently found. So definitely check out Morph's website and his work. I like Ross Sullivan for Cheri Jo Bates. Again, there's nothing placing him in the Bay Area during the canonical crimes. He also trapped a guy in a phone booth one time when he was butt naked and got arrested for indecent exposure. That doesn't sound very Zodiac-ish to me.
No, exactly. That's crazy. Like, this is an amazing case, Ross. Oh my God. Like, I mean, just. Yeah. And I know we've barely scratched the surface. I mean, like,
I just wanted to give you the pre-crimes because that was what you asked me about. But again, if you want to do a part 2, we can do the 4.
Sure.
Do the 4 Zodiac canonicals. Maybe try to get Drew back here with us because he's amazing on the backgrounds of that stuff.
That would be amazing, Ross. I would love to. That's what I was going to ask you, is if we could actually do a part 2. And get some of the people that you want to, I can bring a couple more guests on, and we can kind of have a panel and really break this down, because I think people that once they watch what we did today, it's going to give them the pre-crimes, and it's going to definitely spark their interest. And I think it's a great place to start, is what we started today, bringing it up to what, the more stuff, the stuff that people know more about, like this more stuff you see in the documentaries.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's even that's what I really like about Morph and Rich's podcast. Even between those big canonical things, there's little weird, crazy things that happen in between that a lot of people don't know about, and that's kind of part of the more overall overarching Zodiac timeline. I'll leave you guys with one real quick, because head on over to Drew Beeson's YouTube channel. It's Drew Beeson, where he does the Zodcast. He does an amazing podcast about his suspect with pictures. He's been doing these episodes about this guy named Fred Manali. I'll make this super quick, just as a parting thought for you. Fred Manali is a weird, colorful character. A lot of people think he's a suspect in the Santa Rosa hitchhiking murders, which Graysmith brings up in his second book, Zodiac Unmasked. I haven't even read that one, but I just know about it from other people. I think it's like 7 girls who were hitchhiked that were killed and thrown into these ravines. And after Fred Manali dies in a car crash, there's this very, very ominous post in the San Francisco Chronicle under the classified sections. And people have posted this online. You can find it. And it says, Zodiac, your partner is in deep real estate. You need to check in or you'll be next. The Imperial Wizard. And that Imperial Wizard thing, I mean, the Imperial Wizard is the title of the leader of the Ku Klux Klan. So for me personally, I think that could be another cult connection. My personal theory is that Zodiac is a cult member. I don't push it too hard, but I'm working on it.
I was thinking of that too, Ross. Yeah. So you're not far off. I was going to ask you, but I'm going to save that for the next interview I do with you. But I definitely, as I was doing some research, I'm like, he's got to have something to do with the occult somewhere. There's cult somewhere in here, and to me it's very obvious.
Well, did you see David Aranchak's work of how they finally cracked that first cipher after 50 years?
Right. Yes.
He talks about
I can't remember the name of the book. I can't remember the name of the book he references, but it does break down the code.
The Most Dangerous Game.
That's it. There you go.
Yeah. So what is Zodiac's reason for killing? Before we go, he says, I'm collecting slaves for my afterlife, and I'm not afraid to go to paradise, because when if I get caught or if you kill me, I'll be sent to paradise with all my slaves.
Right.
So that sounds very occultic, satanic, as you were saying. And so the whole Fred Manali thing, they think there's some possible connections between Fred Manali's handwriting and some of the words he used are similar to words in the Zodiac letters. And then that weird post I just told you about, some people think that maybe Fred Manali was involved, maybe as the letter writer, just a theory. And then there's that weird, that's like one of my favorite facts, because it's this weird random thing. Like, it literally says Zodiac, and then it says your partner's in deep real estate. They think that they're talking about his partner being dead. And that was like, I think, a few days after Fred Manali died in a car crash. And Drew Beeson has a couple of videos on that. It's interesting. Wow. So there's a little mini canonical hidden factoid for you.
I'm definitely diving into some more research tonight. I'll probably be messaging you later, asking you for probably 100 questions again. But
it's all good. I mean, it's like when you asked me about the costume, you're like, hey, could that be a possible hint? And I'm like, I basically told you, no question is a stupid question in the Zodiac, because no one knows anything. So of course the executioner's hood is a possible hint, because he referenced the Japanese play The Mikado. And there's a character named Coco, the Lord High Executioner. So a lot of people think he was he was a fan of that performance, the Gilbert and Sullivan,
right.
The Mikado.
I didn't think of
So
that.
a lot of people think he was reenacting that Lord High Executioner character. So yeah, I mean, it definitely plays into his personality and what he wrote. You know?
Wow, that's crazy. So I definitely want to give you the last couple minutes here, Ross. Let everybody know where they can find you, what's on your channel. Take a couple minutes and let everybody know all about you, buddy. This is your part of the show. Go ahead and take it over.
Definitely. So head over to my channel, youtube.com/PlanetXFilm. The title of the channel is Planet X FilmWorks. We're looking to get some short films and some trailers and some more just entertainment, creative stuff up there. But you can find my series there, the Zodiac Files. That's where I do these pre-crimes, crime scene breakdowns and deep dives of the cases that myself and Crypt Rick have just discussed here. I also do a separate series called the Zodiac Files Interviews, where I interview people like Drew Beeson, Dr. Howard Davis. My next one will be Dr. Mark Hewitt. And these guys are book authors. They're actual experts on the Zodiac case. So all that material is there. You can find me on Twitter at Ross Geraci PXF. You can always hit me on Twitter, hit me with any questions there. That's basically it. We recently did a panel on the Professor Dad channel with Professor Thomas Henry Horan.
Yeah, that was great. I'm glad I caught that. That was amazing.
It was myself, Drew Beeson, Ned from Black Box Online Radio, and definitely check his channel. He's awesome. He does everything. I'm looking to get some more. I want to do some more DB Cooper stuff with Drew. Like I said, I'm not like a crazy huge true crime guy, but I do have like the few cases I have. You can see I'm glued into them. So
oh, for sure. And you even, and I remember I watched your channel. I think the first thing I caught was you talking about the David Crowley scripts. Like you kind of go into that.
Oh yeah. Me and Greg did a deep dive. Yeah. Shout out to Greg.
Amazing. Yeah, that was a great video. I really enjoyed that, how you kind of go through it. And I didn't know until then that you were actually part of like that Gray State, like kind of like helping out. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that at all. So
yeah, I was just a producer on it.
Right.
Yeah, we
just
did deep
a producer.
dives. yeah, we did deep dives on both versions of the Gray State script. That was cool because Greg is actually the one who put me onto that. It's funny because I was like basically, part of the project, and I was like, yeah, dude, I read the script, and he was like, which one? And I was like, there's two, and then I'm like, so we broke them both down.
That's what I said too. I remember Greg saying, I was like, I read the script, and he was like, did you read them all? And I'm like, oh, what do you mean? I got another one to read. So I did.
Yeah, that was cool.
Crazy.
Yeah, we kind of compared them and did that. So that the deep dives of the Gray State scripts are on there. A lot of, we mostly do action, grindhouse, science fiction, kung fu, martial arts reviews, but there's some TV and some, some movie reviews on there if that's your thing. So go drop me some likes.
Oh, definitely. Thank you, Ross. I want to thank you, Ross, so much for taking the time to come and break down the Zodiac, start breaking down Zodiac for us. I think that I can't thank you enough because I'm fascinated now, and just talking to you for this interview. And I'm definitely going to be diving into it more starting tonight. I'm going to be even going more, and you're always welcome to come here, do a part 2, and we can continue where we left off this show. I really want to get you back on, and I thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Definitely, man. Thank you for having me. That was my first solo interview on the Zodiac and my series. So hopefully I can do some more of these. And
for sure. You did amazing. Thank you so much. And I'll definitely have a great day. Have a great evening. And I will keep in touch with you. Take care, Russ.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Take care.
Subscribe to his channel too. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Take care. Well, there we have it. As I always say at the end of every interview, that was an amazing interview. And wow, I mean, I was so hooked in as soon as Ross started telling me about that. And I'm so happy that he took the time to come on our show here and to take the time to break down the pre-Zodiac, like he was saying, the crimes that we were discussing in this interview, and trying to go back a little bit before, what most people start with, where they start with the Zodiac timeline. He's going back, and that's what I really loved about his channel and the videos he was telling you about, where they go to the scenes, the scene of the crimes, and show you what it looks like and breaks it all down. And it's just amazing. And what a great guest. I really thank you once again, Ross, for coming here and chatting with us and teaching people. And I'm really looking forward to having you back on and talking more about Zodiac. I think it'll be great just to kind of, build it up and walk people right from the start to, to where, where it ends basically, and people where they think it's going. And looking forward to maybe if you can get me some other people, like I can get on here as a guest and get their take on the case and their views on it. That's what I like doing. I just think that it's amazing, and I really enjoy talking to people on a lot, on these topics. And it's great to hear their points of view and where their research is taking them. And I find that super interesting. So I definitely want to, thank everybody for taking the time to come sit with us here. Check out the interview. I hope everybody had a great New Year. Want to wish everybody, all my viewers, a happy New Year for sure. And just remember, everybody out there, as I say, has an interesting story. And what makes the story interesting is that it is your unique story. And that is what makes it interesting to me. And don't forget you can also start checking me out here, and definitely go to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. That is right. That is Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I am there every Monday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Studio A. And really hope you guys go there and check it out. Show some support. And lots of great content on there. A lot of great hosts on there covering a lot of amazing topics. So definitely check that out. And want to thank you all once again. Have yourself a great day, great evening. All depends on what time zone you're on. And don't forget that I will be back. So please hit the like, the share, the subscribe. Let people know about this channel. Let them know there's some great interviews going on here. And I have a lot of great, cool guests on a lot of different topics coming up for this new year. So please, definitely check it out. And I will talk to you soon. Take care, guys. Peace.